Good morning and welcome to Rising. This just in, we have a stupendous show for you today. Briahna, let them know all about it.
Well, Robby, our Rising panel gets into how Liz Cheney is being received by her constituents and Democratic voters. And we have Stephen Simler breaking down a new bill that would tamp down the Pentagon's budget. Plus, Alan McLeod discusses why Twitter is recruiting employees from the FBI. But first, today, President Biden is expected to urge Congress to temporarily suspend the gas tax for the rest of the summer, according to sources familiar with the plan.
The president's ask will lift the current 18 cents a gallon tax to provide some relief, but obviously don't expect massive savings. The average driver of large SUVs would only save about $4.60 a week, according to Gas Buddy. And Gas Buddy's the expert. So while this may gather bipartisan support, it won't make a huge dent at the pump for consumers. The more I learn about this is obviously not an area of expertise for me, but my colleague at Reason Magazine, Christian Britschke, who's very smart, wrote a piece saying that he didn't like this idea, even from the libertarian perspective, because while we generally hate all taxes and there should be no taxes and probably no government as well, the gas tax is closer to a user charge, so the gas tax goes to pay for the roads that people who are driving are using. So it's almost like a kind of just toll for using the road in some sense. It is better for people in general. People who use a government service should be the one paying for it. Not everyone is as close I want to get to things. So if non-drivers subsidizing drivers paying for roads is a worse outcome. So people who drive on roads should be the ones paying for them would be my criticism of this policy.
Ideologically, I'm going to disagree with you on that. However, what's frustrating from my perspective is that it's such a marginal, on the fringe policy when you're looking at people who are facing such overwhelming costs these days. And so it does feel like this is the limit of the American imagination. In fact, this is going to be the subject of my radar later today. But it is frustrating that when you see other kinds of interventions being taken advantage of in different parts of the world that are obviously all experiencing these same high gas prices, none of that is even on the tip of the tongue of even the most far left American official. And even this gas tax holiday is controversial. We talked a little bit yesterday about Jennifer Granholm saying that she wasn't, entirely sure it was a good idea because it, goes to the funding of roads and the infrastructure that Biden has been focused on. You have people in Congress on both sides of the aisle who are resisting this. We have corporations speaking out against it. I think I saw it was the Target CEO coming out against some of these Biden interventions, even though they are very meager. And on the other side of this, the things that people are suggesting in the alternative, including a lot of conservatives, either are being pursued by Joe Biden, much to my chagrin as a leftist, I have to say, because of the environmental consequences. But Biden has opened up drilling earlier this spring. He is trying to encourage oil companies to open up refineries that shut down during COVID, because we have a lot of American oil. We just don't have the ability to refine it into the gas that's needed for cars. All of this stuff is going on, but refineries are refusing to open because they don't see the profit in doing so. They see electric cars kind of ending the reign of the profitability there. Besides which, even if they did, the tail on a lot of these interventions actually having an effect on the market is 3-5 years out or more. So everyone, I think, is missing the ball here about what the slate of policies are that can meaningfully make a difference, especially from a Democratic Party perspective before midterms.
Yeah, and if we don't need to pay this tax, and we still get enough money somehow to keep the roads in good shape. I mean, the roads are in terrible shape in lots of places. I'm from Michigan.
Yeah.
Jennifer Granholm, former governor of my state, the road conditions in Michigan terrible. The road conditions just tend to be very bad in states that get hit with terrible winter weather. I think. But if we can fix or not fix the roads with that, why do we have the tax at all? Let's just not have any tax ever.
Well, by the way, speaking of Michigan, Gretchen Whitmer, the current governor, she was
kidnapping victim. See the air quotes I'm putting around that?
Whitmer was actually opposed to a gas tax when it came up locally in Michigan before she now is supporting Joe Biden with his national effort. Not sure what the politics are of that there, but I saw some conservatives criticizing her for what they perceive to be a flip-flop. So again, I don't know what the point is of taking this much political heat over 18 cents a gallon. Again, I don't want to minimize that because people are really stretched very thin and every little bit helps. And I think it is heartening to see someone trying to do something. But honestly, at this stage, it does seem like that something is almost insultingly meager.
Well, meanwhile, more and more economists are predicting a recession. Goldman Sachs said that the risk of recession has doubled since the Fed's most recent interest rate hike and now predicts a 30% chance of recession in the next year. The risk grows to nearly 50% over a 2-year period. According to results from the latest CNBC CFO Council survey, 68% of chief financial officers say a recession will occur during the first half of 2023. And get this, not one of the CFOs surveyed thinks the economy will avoid a recession. The White House, however, is still refusing to acknowledge the impending financial fallout.
And right now, we don't see a recession. Right now, we're not in a recession right now. Right now, we're in a transition where we are going to go into a place of stable and steady growth, and that's going to be that's going to be our focus.
I mean, that's just wishful, naive
thinking. It's technically
it's her job,
true, right? It's that double speak. Right now, we're not in a recession. Yes. Okay, well, thank you.
But is that what anyone said? Did anyone ask her and say, are we in a recession now? No.
Of course not.
They said, are we going to be in a recession? She said, well, we're not in a recession now.
Of course not. And delusionally pointing to some kind of good numbers that exist right now in this second. While people are obviously planning for bad numbers down the line, I mean, the reason why oil prices are so high is not because the cost per barrel of oil is at historic highs. There's a gap there because of the futures markets and people anticipating delays down the line. So all of this is just such a smoke and mirrors.
That's the exact kind of evasiveness that would have, if it was a Trump spokesperson doing it, or just a Republican spokesperson in general, that would have generated mainstream media headline after headline after headline about the blatant dishonesty, the lying of the administration to say, do you think we're going to be? Everybody says we're going to have a recession. You know, what does the administration think? Well, we're not in a recession now. That would have the fact checkers would have sprung into action.
Yeah, I feel
now, but because it's a Democratic administration, it falls to us. Falls to us.
Well, I'm glad we're on the job, Robby. Larry Summers, a frequent confidant to Biden, says the unemployment rate would need to rise above 5% for a sustained period in order to curb inflation, which would mean devastation for millions of American workers. 95% of Americans surveyed by Numerator said that inflation is hitting them hard and that they are budgeting to make ends meet, while 66% said that they are cutting back on non-essential spending to mitigate costs, while 20% are worried about how to make it. According to the Fed, consumer debt is approaching a record-breaking $16 trillion.
Not good. Not good.
No. And this is what I mean about the size of the intervention needing to match the gravity of the problem. You have these CFOs anticipating, and accurately, I think, that there's going to be a recession at the same time. That I'm sorry, there's some asymmetry in the conversation about how they've been making money. Their corporations have been making money hand over fist. They received the bulk of the bailouts in 2020. And now they're kind of sitting back, crossing their arms and saying, this is what the economy is going to do.
That's why the bailouts were always terrible ideas. Always bad. We should never do them. It's going back to TARP. The auto bailouts, the airline bailouts during the pandemic were just obscene and absurd and stupid. And, you know, how much of that money was just given as golden parachutes to executives anyway?
Yeah, I would argue that if you're going to spend enough money to bail out a company, more money than it would cost to buy the company,
right, you want the government to just buy
consider
the company.
Getting in the business of it. If you're going to pay all that money, you should at least get a return on your investment.
I mean, some of these, well, I don't agree with that. Some of these sectors are we're so flooded with government money that it is akin to being a state-managed industry.
Except there's a pass-through to all the private interests involved, and so you might as well just get rid of the
middleman. It gets into this. Yeah. I don't agree this is a good strategy, but I understand why when you have a specific industry that is so entangled with the state, and then you can have very bad incentives when you're both pursuing profits, but also begging for handouts when things don't. So that can incentivize riskier behavior, because we're going to take risks hoping to reap massive profits. And if it fails, we'll just have the government bail us out.
Right.
That's the worst of both incentives.
That's right. That's what's happening with student debt, and it happens all over the place.
Yeah, right. It happens with student debt. Yeah, and we don't accept that in other countries. When we consider whether they're like sufficiently market economies, we look at, well, how much is the government involved in various sectors of the economy? Does our own financial system pass this test? Does the auto system, et cetera? So it's BS. But I look forward to hearing what's on your radar.